you only have like a third of the people in. So, but let's start on time today. What do you say, Dr. Lippiatt?
Let's go.
Let's do it. Okay, we are beginning. So thank you everybody for joining us today on today's webinar. We promise that it's going to be packed with a lot of practical suggestions on what your practice can do to stand out online. So I'm Daniel Rostenne, CEO of EyeCarePro, and I would like to start by introducing you to and welcoming Dr. Justin Manning from Healthy Eyes Advantage. Healthy Eyes Advantage is sponsoring the PowerUp 2021 series of webinars. We have an 8-part series of webinars, and Dr. Manning is the EVP of professional strategies at HEA. Dr. Manning, welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. We're thrilled to be a part of this event. So again, I appreciate, especially in the last minute, getting us in and allowing us to be a part of this fantastic webinar series. I am Dr. Justin Manning, and I know you all came not to listen to me, but listen to Dr. Lippiatt and Dr. Smiley, who really deserve all of the credit for all of the content. They are truly the experts in their field. So it's an honor for me to share the virtual stage with them. Healthy Eyes Advantage, we are the largest independent buying group for the independent eye care professional nationwide with more than 10,000 members. And we are truly building the next generation marketplace, the one stop, the one community, the one family of independent eye care professionals where you can find anything and everything you need for your practices. Everything from discount programs to consolidated billing, to the clinical education, to the business education and knowledge, to consulting, to billing and coding help, all of those items, all of those resources that you need to be efficient and effective in practice, you can find at Healthy Eyes Advantage. With regards to our forthcoming PowerUp campaign, why we're super excited to be a part of the PowerUp webinar series with EyeCarePro, which is one of our strategic partners to be even that much more excited about. We've recently launched programs like the Coding Coach, which is a free member benefit involving a monthly newsletter, bi-monthly webinars, an online frequently asked billing and coding database within the HEA member portal, and a direct billing and coding hotline. We recently launched a brand new consulting program called Practice Advantage in conjunction with the Williams Group. So I will stop talking because I could continue all day, and that's not why you're here. But we'd love to have you join the family if you're not already a part of Healthy Eyes Advantage. To do so, just go to www.hea2020.com. So at this point in time, thanks again for the opportunity to be a part of this outstanding webinar series. And I'll turn things back over to the EyeCarePro team and Drs. Lippiatt and Smiley.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manning. Thanks for the introduction, and good to know more about Healthy Eyes Advantage. So let's jump into the webinar. So I'm going to give a little bit of background here. Why are we talking about marketing? Because EyeCarePro helps about 2,000 practices with their online marketing. And to date, actually, as of this morning, we've helped get 794,529 appointment requests for the practices that we work with, which is targeted to be up 37% over last year, which is pretty good for a COVID year. May it end soon. So that's why we're going to be talking about online marketing. And in a minute, we're going to meet our co-hosts. But before we do, I want to do a little groundwork for today's webinar. If you want to succeed at online marketing, first, you have to know your practice very well, and I'm sure many of you do, obviously, and you have to know your goals equally well, and you have to spend a lot of time thinking about what are the goals of the practice, because online marketing is going to be a solution that you're going to apply to your unique business challenges. So it's not going to be one size fits all. There's no one strategy, no one anything fits all, and there's no company that should ever be able to tell you that it is, hey, here's the package for you, off you go. That seldom is going to work. It really has to be a custom fit in any marketing strategy that you're doing. Now, that being said, we need to get a handle on online marketing. So I'm going to take you through what's going to be probably pretty familiar to you, which is the typical stage of growth that a practice goes through. A practice starts, a small practice, you just started, you got your equipment, got some staff, and you start to build your patient base. And as the practice grows and the years move on, the patient base grows. And throughout those years, and it might continue actually past it, if you were to ask the question of the practice, well, what kind of patients are you looking for? In a lot of cases, the practice is going to say, any kind of patient. I don't have any specific kind of patient that I focus on. Our goal is to fill the books. And some practices, that's the be all and end all, and that's a great goal to have. But knowing that your goal is to get any kind of patient, that'll affect your marketing strategy. The second thing that happens is as the practice gets to a certain point where, a lot of returning patients, you head into what we call stage 2 of practice growth. And that stage, things start to change a little bit because not all patients are created equal at that point. And so you might say, we have a preference a little bit for this kind of demographic. Maybe this patient has more disposable income that they've got available, or maybe you've developed a specialty and you've really got some high revenue patients. So a stage 2 practice is classically defined in our books as a practice where you've asked them the question, what kind of patients are you looking for? They're going to answer the high revenue patient. And that's a different kind of marketing strategy that has to target it. So that's how we look at online marketing. We view it as your goal is to get patients. You got to figure out what kind of patients, and let's get a marketing strategy to go ahead and meet that goal. Now, marketing is complicated, and there's a whole lot of factors that are going to go into actually putting that strategy together. And so as we go about today's webinar, joining me are our two wonderful co-hosts, Dr. Lorie Lippiatt from Salem Eye Care Center and Dr. Chris Smiley from Vision Professionals. And they're going to share their experience, their expertise in a lot of these matters that relate to online marketing. So I just want to start by welcoming the two of you. Dr. Lippiatt, Dr. Smiley, welcome to the webinar.
Thanks, Daniel, and welcome everyone. Glad to have you with us. As Daniel mentioned, I'm Dr. Lorie Lippiatt. I own a private practice, a 2-doctor practice in Salem, Ohio that I started in 1989. So I've been in practice here for 31 years. And while we don't really specialize in one particular aspect of optometry, we've always branded ourselves as a leader in technology. So we strive to use technology to the highest degree to provide the most excellent care that we can to our patients, sort of that Starbucks experience. At the same time, we've built a great optical experience, as well as really concentrating on high-tech lens solutions for patients and customized solutions as far as eyewear goes. So our emphasis has been around branding the hashtag See the Difference as a differentiator for our practice from the surrounding practices in our area. Chris is in a little different situation. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar. We know many of you are probably a little Zoom burned out, but maybe are looking for some ideas on how to recharge your practice in 2021. I'm Dr. Chris Smiley, 2001 graduate of The Ohio State University College of Optometry. I own a 4-location multi-specialty practice in the Central Ohio area. My practice emphasizes specialty contact lenses, keratoconus and scleral lenses are a big part of my practice. And like Daniel alluded to earlier, when I started off, we kind of were in that stage 1 where we just wanted to take any patient that we could get. And then as our practice got busier, at least as my personal practice got busier, we transitioned into stage 2, and we found that we could be real effective at marketing kind of those hidden secrets or hidden gems that no one knew about in our practice. So currently we have a new associate that's been with us for a year, and we're adding some vision therapy, and we're really focused on building those specialties. While we do focus on technology and general eye care, we found that marketing our specialties has been very effective. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Daniel.
Thank you. So there you have it. You have two practices that are relatively different from Dr. Lippiatt's practice, which is focused more on the branding side, on the technology, and Dr. Smiley's practice, which of course is happy to do the same, but has a lot more of a focus on the specialty side of things. So that's the experience we bring to the table today. So as we get into all our topics, you're going to get a good variety of input in terms of how all that fits together. So I want to start with my first question to the two of you, which is online marketing has its ups and downs, its successes, its challenges. So what are your biggest challenges, and what do you think resonates with the group listening today? Maybe we'll start with Dr. Lippiatt.
Well, I think marketing in general is a challenge. We're eye doctors, we're optometrists, we're busy, and really for the last 8 or 9 months, our lives have completely changed as it relates to what we're doing in our practices. Most of us have kind of taken a pause from a lot of other things to retool our physical plants to be able to safely see patients, try to keep our staff safe, manage all of the complexities that has to do with what we're dealing with. So it's real easy for marketing to kind of fall to the bottom of the barrel. So time, even in good times, is a factor. And how do you get your story out there, and what is your story? So for us, the challenge of really deciding what our marketing strategy is going to be, and then actually implementing that has been a challenge. That's where we've really had to rely on outside sources, especially EyeCarePro, when our time and our business model has abruptly changed.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's challenge is time now. That's no question. Dr. Smiley?
And I would echo a lot of what Lorie said there. You know, I think our biggest enemy is ourselves. And when we're caught back in the exam room for 8 hours a day, flipping the dials, asking patient which one's better, one or two, sometimes that web and the marketing aspect gets pushed down to the bottom of the list. And so what happens is you go through these vicious cycles where you get slow and you crank up your marketing work, and then you get busy and you don't do anything. And it's just not really an effective way of doing things. I've been a victim of being sold a website that looked pretty but didn't really do anything, was never updated. And I found when I found my relationship with EyeCarePro, I found it to be so much more effective in that we do monthly meetings and we constantly talk about this. And that creates accountability for me, but I don't have to do all the work because I have an expert with content writers that can do stuff for me. And I can do as much or as little as I want, but I'm still involved and I have that accountability.
So as we go through, thank you, Dr. Smiley, as we go through today's webinar, you will hear Dr. Lippiatt and Dr. Smiley refer back to what they call their marketing manager at EyeCarePro. And that's the person at EyeCarePro that has a monthly call with them every month. And that's what Dr. Smiley loves, to keep them on track. And Dr. Lippiatt loves to talk through the strategy. So you'll hear more about that as they refer back to this person. One of them happens to be Donnie, and one of them happens to be Michael. So if you hear those names, that's who they are. So now with that said, I've already mentioned that online marketing is a pretty big, complex space, which is why, thanks to HEA, we're going to have this 8-part webinar series. And as we mentioned, there is an Amazon gift card for everybody who stays till the end of the webinar. Just want to make sure you all heard that. It's all here, so stick with us till the end. But in terms of the webinar series, you can get a degree in online marketing. That's just how complex the topic is. So we can't go through everything. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to focus in on what we've determined are probably the 3 biggest areas that you need to focus in on. And if you can leave today's webinar with a couple tips in each of these areas, it's going to be well worth your while. First one is social media. Enough said. There's everybody's got to get into social media, and then Google, which is the single biggest source of traffic to every single website in the world. Finished, including yours. So you got to deal with Google, and then of course your website, because in the end, it's got to come down to a great website. So we're going to focus on those 3 topics for today, and pack you with some information. So with that said, I'm going to dive right into everybody's favorite topic: social media. Now, I fully understand that when we start to talk about social media, a couple of things happen. One, a lot of people say, I don't like social media. I'm not interested, but I know we have to do it. Number 2 is it can be overwhelming. Just take a look at all the logos at the bottom of this slide. Every few months, you're being told that there's a new social media platform. Do I have to do TikTok? I don't know. With hundreds of millions of users, and you're being told that you're almost a fool if you're ignoring each platform that comes out. But I want to help keep it into perspective. Okay, the practice has limited resources. You have to do a reality check from your perspective. Unless you're going to hire somebody full-time to do social media, and even the largest practices that we deal with don't really do that, then it's not practical to chase every social media platform that shows up. You're just not going to do it. So instead, we're going to focus on picking a few platforms. And you're not a fool for ignoring the others. You're not Coca-Cola. You're not Airbnb. They would be foolish to ignore all the platforms. So let's take a look. This is 2020. Here are all the top social platforms that are out there. Okay. Let's face it, Facebook is at the top of the list. Everybody absolutely must have a good Facebook presence. There's nothing to talk about. I'm sure everybody already has a presence. We'll talk about how to make it better. But once you get past Facebook, then what do we do next? Okay, YouTube is actually, I don't view it more as a social platform. I view it as a content platform. And so we'll talk a little bit later about how as a content platform, having videos helps. So we'll push that to the side. But WhatsApp, not relevant. Messenger, doesn't really matter. WeChat, and then lo and behold, there's Instagram, pretty high up on the list. But I wanted to point out that look at the bottom of the list. Who's down at the bottom? Pinterest. Now, I'm not knocking it, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be on Pinterest, but you remember when it came out, it was like, this is it. Everybody should be on Pinterest. And all of a sudden, not so much later, there's Instagram, which is, which is beating Pinterest basically. And so now you say, oh, I forget Pinterest, I should be on Instagram. That's what happens with social platforms. It's very hard to gauge at the beginning who's going to succeed and who isn't. So right now, number one would be Facebook. Number two would be Instagram. So let's focus on those two. You don't need to be on LinkedIn. It's okay. And you don't need to be on Twitter. That's okay also. Believe me, that's not where your patients are likely going to come from. But now that you've chosen a platform or two, and you're going to hear that from Dr. Lippiatt and Dr. Smiley as well, let's look at just the simple rules to follow. None of this is going to be news to you. So I'm just going to take you through some of the common sense points, but often I think Dr. Smiley alluded to it earlier. He said, I need to be reminded of stuff. I need to be told. I lose focus. Just bring me back. I'm busy all day. So let's focus in on the top three rules. Number one, when I say steady wins the race, what I really mean is that if you want to have a good Facebook page, how would it look if somebody shows up to the Facebook page and you haven't posted for 3 months? Okay, simple. You can't have that. All right, that doesn't look good. The potential patient is looking at that. It's hard to take you so seriously when you haven't posted in 3 months. So you have to make sure that you commit the resources to be able to post regularly. And it's not going to help just to commit the resources. You're going to have to actually have good things to post. EyeCarePro posts to all of its practices pages so that we can, as I say, keep it respectable. I cannot be you. We cannot be posting on your behalf. We can keep it respectable. We can make sure the page is looking good. And you're going to hear from both doctors shortly on what they do to actually make it look great. So one is be consistent. Number two, you can't just post, hey, buy these lenses, and just commercial posts all the time. Most practices don't even feel comfortable doing that, but you have to get a good balance. So go with the educational side as much as possible, but don't forget, even though you don't like it, you do have to post and ask for the business every once in a while. So you're going to have to put in a few promotional posts. It's okay. It's expected and it's fine. And then once you've done that and you've got yourself a schedule and you're posting and you've got the rhythm going and you're keeping it up, then I think it helps to have good expectations. How much are you really going to get out of it? If you have a staff member who's got some of their time dedicated, you're boosting Facebook posts, you've really got some traction, you're developing a followership, then I think you're going to start to get some patients out of it, but just be realistic in terms of how many you're going to get out of it. Definitely, if you try and you put in the effort, you will. But if you're not able to put in the effort, I don't think you're going to get much out of social media. So got to be careful that way. So with that said, that's the backdrop. Now, Dr. Lippiatt and Dr. Smiley, let's head over to you. My main question is, how do you, Dr. Lippiatt, how do you generate content for your Facebook page or whatever other platforms you work with?
Thanks, Daniel. And yeah, those are the two platforms that we've chosen, Facebook and Instagram. We generally live in a more rural area and a lot of our patients are older. So Twitter really, we tried Twitter, but really it didn't really work out for us. So Facebook and Instagram are really the two platforms that we use. And I'm not a big Facebook person and I'm not a big social media person. So as you mentioned earlier, some of us don't like it, but we recognize that we have to do it. I definitely fall in that category. So what I did was I utilized my staff member, Emily, who is a big Facebook lover and social media addict. And she became the point person in our practice to help boost our social media presence. So what does that mean? It means that part of her job is to spend a certain amount of time each week developing our Facebook content in addition to what content we get from EyeCarePro. So we sort of manage two different calendars, if you will, the content that EyeCarePro develops for us, as well as our internal content. So Emily and I meet once every couple of weeks, and we really talk about the upcoming month, and then once during the month to see how it's going. And the way we've organized everything is with a simple calendar, and we tend to have themes. So if you look on Tuesday, our theme is more light, comics and smiles and hello December. If you look to Friday, that's where we really like to feature our fashion optical products. So a new frame line, patients wearing frames that they've purchased in our practice. And then we mix the other days up, but we lay it out ahead of time. We talk about what themes, and how I come up with some of the themes is listening to patients in the exam room. So when everything went more virtual, especially schools in the area, kids were spending more time on screens, we started hearing back in the exam rooms a lot of questions around blue light. So that prompted earlier this year a lot of content to center around blue light. So keeping a pulse on what patients are asking for in the exam room. Another example would be multifocal contact lenses. So, when I start to hear themes develop in the exam room, then we start to push that content into
idea.
Into our Facebook. So just some examples of content that we might push out there. Again, we've experimented all over the place with what captures attention. And, another tip that we do sometimes is maybe twice or three times a year, we'll offer a $10 reduction on a fee that we charge, say, Optometry. And if a patient likes or engages with our Facebook page, we offer them that little perk. So in November, we did a campaign with our patients. What are you thankful for? Again, whenever we utilize a patient in any type of social media, we have a HIPAA compliant form that we ask them to fill out. We go over that with them. We sign off on it. They sign off on it. So it's all completely compliant. Again, utilizing our hashtags, see the difference in almost every post that we put out. Other examples of content would be the first of the month when we just welcome the month in. And then probably this year, the biggest use of Facebook that was the most beneficial for our practice was as we were retooling the physical plant, keeping patients advised on an almost daily or weekly basis of the changes that we were making in our practice. We try not to send out overload of email blasts, which would be another way, and we do use email blasts, but really as the office was evolving and changing with COVID, we found this very effective in keeping our patients aware of what was happening at the physical plant. And then finally, just the comical, lighthearted ones. And I want to point out that sometimes, it's weird in the exam room. Sometimes you're wondering if your Facebook posts are doing any good. Just not too long ago, I had an older patient in her late 70s say to me, "Hey, my daughter showed me a picture that was on your Facebook. I don't do Facebook, but she showed me, it was really cute." So while we really do use analytics to gauge and measure how successful we are, I just want to point out that sometimes your reach is or could be larger than you realize. The impact can be larger.
Good. Thank you for answering that question that somebody asked. And I think, Dr. Smiley, you also have something to say about that, about patients coming in and talking about the posts that they see online, right?
Sure. My experience with social media is just a little bit different. I think I went to a couple CE seminars on how to grow your practice with social media, and me being a results-oriented guy, I had these grandiose expectations coming out of those seminars that, wow, Facebook could really drive a lot of patients to my practice, and Facebook can drive patients to your practice. And if that's a big focus for someone out there on your marketing team phone call, that's something that can be a big focus. But I had to sort of retool my expectations on what social media does for our practice. And I think it's important to hear this so there's no false expectations. We're into building relationships, and many private practices are long-term relationships with patients. And we maintain those relationships while we're in the office, but we may only get to see these patients once a year. And so our social media platforms are ways and tools for us to maintain communication and stay in touch and maintain those relationships with those patients. So it creates that engagement, and it also can drive new patients because one of your own patients may not realize the service that you provide. So for example, we have tons of primary eye care patients, even though we are a specialty lens practice. So we definitely use Facebook in our practice, as you see here as a post on our specialty lens services. And it's great to see those patients that were crying in your exam room because this is the first time they've ever been able to see that way, like those types of posts. We also have a nice medical eye care practice. And so we kind of salt and pepper different things in our social media. This is one that focuses on medical eye care. And of course, we do some of our own social media posts along with EyeCarePro, kind of delegating a lot of it and doing a lot of it for us. But around the holidays, we have an elf on the shelf at each location, and each elf has a name, and each elf likes to get into some mischief. So this is just from the other day of our elf Cornelius in the Keurig machine, sucking down some coffee, or probably for Cornelius, it's probably Kahlua with that. We're also involved in Instagram, and I'm really realizing with COVID, and even though there's some Zoom burnout, I think people are really engaging more online. And so my conversations with my monthly web call, along with conversations with Daniel, I'm going to make YouTube and some videos part of my 2021 plan. So here is a little tripod for my phone where I can do a quick 1 minute, 2 minute shoot when something comes across my mind. And that recommendation came from Daniel. So thank you, Daniel.
Oh, well done for carrying out for actually ordering the tripod. Yeah, the conversation that Dr. Smiley and I had was just generating content. And I said, you probably talk to your patients every day about, all sorts of things. Yes, well, stop and take a 1 minute video, but don't have a handheld camera, get a tripod, put it on same spot every week on the desk with a good background. And it turns out that he did it. So nicely done. We're looking forward to seeing the content. So social media tying into the website. Remember, in a lot of cases, people are going to check out your social page. That's not how they're going to make their final decision to come to the practice. Once they do that, then they're going to go and focus in on the website and see what's happening on the website. Now, often Google is what brings them there. So let's take a look at how basically to get as much traffic as you can from Google. So on the Google side of things, we track over a million page views a month across the 2,000 sites that we work with. So you want to do the math on that, 1 million divided by 2,000, that basically gets you an average of about 500 visitors a month to each of the sites that we work with. If you don't know what your website traffic is, I urge you to take a moment, whoever's managing your website, please ask them to install Google Analytics. It's going to be important. All future webinars are going to relate back to how much traffic you're getting and where the traffic is going. It's very, very important for you to know. You know the rule, if you don't measure it, you can't improve it. Think of your practice. What if you said at the end, I don't know how many patients came in today? What does it matter? It's not going to change how many patients came in today. We know that that's a silly thing to say. So the same thing happens online. Get your analytics going. We're going to use it later on. And so with that analytics, we have a pretty good sense of what's happening. 61% of all the traffic that comes to all of our websites is coming from Google. Number one source by far, can't ignore it. So our job is to make Google like us. So how do you make Google like you? That's search engine optimization. It is very complicated. There's no question. And Google wants it to be complicated, but there are some things that are pretty simple in terms of what they mean and how you can get it done. So I want to go through a very quick background on how what is Google, what is search engine optimization, what does Google want, how do you get Google to like you? Okay, so I'm going to be quick here, so stick with me. Okay, number one, Google's in the business to make money. How do they make money? They make money through ads. They're only going to get to show ads if people come to Google, they search on Google, and they like what they see in the search results. Once they do that, they'll come back again and again and again. So Google has a pretty simple job. Get fast search results that are exactly what you were looking for, okay? That netted Google $134 billion in ad revenue last year because people just kept coming back and there are the ads and off they go. So if just Google wants to show something that people like, something that people want, when a person is searching for eye doctor in your area, how does Google know that they should show you? Simple. So for pretend, I could say, hey, we just built Dr. Smith's practice. It's right next to Dr. Lippiatt, but Dr. Smith doesn't exist. How's Google supposed to even know if Dr. Smith exists? It could be an optometrist in Salem, totally fake website. Google doesn't know. So what Google does is it relies on human beings to give signals. So a simple signal would be reviews. I'm not going to get reviews, I mean, unless I really fake it, for a fake doctor with a fake website. So you see Dr. Lippiatt right here, reviews, 190 reviews left by real people. That's a huge signal that Google looks at to tell, hey, this is real, and they're 5-star reviews. So Google loves this signal. The more that signal comes to Google, the more Google's going to say, I got it, this is real. There's another way to achieve the same signal, and that's called a backlink. An example would be, Dr. Smiley sponsors a sports team. The sports team has a website. On their website, they'll put a link on their website, and the link goes right to Dr. Smiley's site. That's a link back to Dr. Smiley. Google says, hey, another real website out there linked to Dr. Smiley. That's called a backlink. The more of those Dr. Smiley can get, first of all, it's great community patient engagement. It's great because he's getting out there. But the more of those he can get, the more Google says, oh, real people making decisions to link to Dr. Smiley, must be real, must be good. The more reviews Dr. Lippiatt's site get, must be real, must be good. That's all well and good. But when they get to your website, the people better find something useful, better find it interesting, because Google's going to tell. They came in, they stuck around for a few seconds, and they left. Where do you think they went back to? They went back to Google to do another search. So you put all that together, and you better have a lot of good content on your website. That's going to be the key to all of this, is going to be having great content on the site. So when I jump into the top simple 3 rules of SEO, the first, second, and the third really should have been content. But number 1, it's putting content on your website. So I think Dr. Lippiatt's and Dr. Smiley's sites each have at least 200 pages of content on them, something along those lines, which is a lot of content. Why so much content? Because they've covered lots and lots of topics out there, and Google not only sees that, but they see content coming on a regular basis being added. Imagine if Google looks at your site, oh, you got great content, but yeah, you last made a content change 2 years ago. Do you think Google's going to say, well, this is the place to go? Send them there. They're going to really be happy with the search results. It's 2 years old. So you have to keep adding new content. As painful as this suggestion sounds, I apologize to everybody out there. Content is not easy to do unless you have a tripod, tripod, and you can take videos and put the videos up. That counts as content as well. So number 1 is put up the content. Number 2, I've mentioned already, get the backlinks. The backlinks are going to be outside signals to Google that somebody likes your website and they're linking to your website, and that boosts you up in the search engines. But the biggest one is, the stats are overwhelming right now. 63% of all searches on Google are from mobile devices, and this is already a few months old. It's probably up to 65 by now. So if your site doesn't look great on mobile, you're in trouble, because people are going to come. It doesn't really look good. It doesn't work so well. I'm out of here. It doesn't matter how many reviews you have. Google's just not going to be interested in showing up at the top. So get a good content strategy. Think about how to get backlinks. A simple idea would be, I mentioned, get an artist, a local artist, get a piece of their art, put it up in your office, and then say to the artist, hey, can you put a link from your website over to us, telling people we have your art here? That's an example of a backlink, okay? It might not be the best, but that's an example of how you can go about it. So those are the rules for SEO. Now, that being said, we have 2 practices here of different strategies for online marketing. So let's start off with Dr. Smiley. You have a specialty practice, a lot of very particular terms, lots of specialty content. So how does that tie in for you on SEO?
Yeah, I kind of my website like I think of my other professionals. So I have an accountant to do my tax return. I have an attorney to do my legal work. You really have to have an SEO expert doing this work for you. And so what's interesting is I'm in a large major metropolitan area. And while EyeCarePro does work with me and we do optimize things like eyeglasses and eye doctor and stuff like that, I can be a big fish in a big sea or by promoting my specialty products. And not only that, that would be scleral lenses, keratoconus, those kinds of things, but those are my most valuable patients. And so they're driving tons of revenue by really being able to optimize things that aren't searched as often in specialty products. So that's one strategy that a practice can take, is what is it that you do that's different than everybody else? And that Lorie even has a spin on, even though she's a general practice, there are specific things she's going to tell you she does really well. And her web team has optimized that for her.
Yep. So specialty content, we found that Google will send traffic over to Dr. Smiley's website, literally 50, 100 miles around. That's the reach that specialty content can have when people are doing searches on Google. So it's, patients will drive that far, won't they? For actually
Yeah.
real specialty
Oh
needs.
yeah. I mean, we have patients definitely driving from out of state, and it's often. I mean, it's remarkable because they've been to 3 or 4 other doctors that haven't been able to meet their needs, and they're searching for help.
Yeah, and so search engine optimization can do it. Dr. Lippiatt, you've got a different angle. Tell us about your history with SEO.
Well, my history with SEO actually started back in 2009 when I got a call from Daniel to say, hey, we have this service. We do search engine optimization. Are you interested? I said, I don't even know what that is, but if I don't know what it is, maybe I better do it. So we started with Daniel almost 11 years ago, and it took a while to really it took me a while to really understand the significance of search engine optimization. I didn't really understand how important it is at that time, but boy, do I understand it now. Probably second to word of mouth. And again, we live in a smaller community, unlike Chris, but word of mouth still being first. Google reviews are definitely a close number 2. As we measure how new patients are finding this, it's almost, if it's not word of mouth, it's definitely Google reviews. And as I was sitting here thinking, one of the things, the changes that happened this year was the amount of people that we were able to drive to our website simply because of COVID, right? Because we had to make all these changes to the practice. Our calls probably in March and April really centered around, is it safe to come in there? I'm scared. And all we had to do was direct them to our website that had everything laid out in black and white on how we were taking safety measures to protect them in our practice. So that was one thing. The other point with the mobile world is you need to be checking what your website looks like on your phone. So quite frequently I have my staff and I just look up our website on our phone. Is it easy to find your hours? Is it easy to search what you're looking for, that type of thing? But definitely content, and not being a great content writer myself, I've really relied on EyeCarePro to help provide that content. What I love about that is, even though I'm busy, I can review the content. It's not posted until I review it. I can edit, I can add just a personal touch to it, whether it's a sentence or more, depending on how much time I have. So don't feel like you have to develop these 200 pages. That just wouldn't be possible. So EyeCarePro has been our friend for content development for sure.
Now, for those out there that are thinking about doing themselves, listen carefully. You see patients every day. You know what to say about each area of optometry. Okay, you have to put it into writing. Google wants words, but it's not like you don't know what to say. You have to put it down in a language that's simple and easy for patients to understand and get it out there. It's a lot of work though, but anybody can produce content in the end. Now, from here, we have topic number 3, which is, I mentioned, it's great to have people looking at the Facebook page, getting to Google. Eventually, they're going to get to your website. And when they get to your website, they have to like the website. And you know that there are literally thousands of companies out there that can build your site. My advice is to use one that just knows a lot about optometry. That shrinks the world down to about a half a dozen. You probably know who the various companies are in our space that can build your website, that know something about optometry. It saves you a lot of hassle of having to teach your website builder everything about optometry and getting everything written yourself. These companies can provide it for you. That's advice number 1. And really, in terms of how to make a great website, there's so much to talk about. This webinar itself could be many hours long if I just spent time talking about all of that. But I'm going to focus in on some of the key stats on on how to produce a website, how to create a website that produces patients. So a few tips. Now, if I lost track of my slide, a few tips. Here we are. All right. So rule number one, I mentioned earlier statistics. So if you're going to build a website, remember the website is for the people that are coming to look at the website. If they're coming to look, your stats can tell you what they're looking at. Your stats can actually tell you what path they took through the site. It can tell you what content they were most interested in. And that lets you focus in on those pages as being the ones that you have to make the best, make the most informative. So number one, know your visitor. Get the stats in there so that you can tell what the visitor is looking at. But I'll tell you right off the bat, the key things that they want, where are you? When are you open? Who am I going to be seeing? I want to see the doctor. Literally, we have practices that the doctor doesn't want to put up a photo of themselves, practices where the doctor does. Guess which one gets way more appointments? If you don't put up a photo of yourself, people, well, I don't know who I'm going to see. So put up a photo of yourself, obviously. Almost everybody does that now. And of course, do you accept my insurances? Those are the key pages when you look at your stats that most people are going to look at. But you have to optimize those pages, work with them, understand the flow, put more of that information on the homepage. That's a simple way of going about it. Everything should be check your site, make sure that's right up the top near the homepage where people can get there easily. That'll be rule number one. But on top of that, once they get to the site, one of the first things they want to know if they're going to schedule an appointment is, I don't know, do you have an appointment available for me? When is the appointment slot? And the best way to get that done is through a real-time appointment scheduler. I mean, they don't want to phone your office to get put on hold or to get answered because things are busy and then ask if there's an appointment tomorrow at 3, only to be told, no, there's no appointment tomorrow at 3. Get the real-time schedule and they can look, hey, there's no appointment at 3, but I see one on Sunday or Monday. Great. Now I can call the office knowing you have an appointment slot for me. So that's going to make a huge difference. You did all that work to get people to your site and now you want to convert them, put the scheduler on there. That's going to be one of the key things to do. So now, Dr. Lippiatt, I know that you love your website. You've put a lot of effort into it. So, just tell us about what that process is like and how do you know that others like your website?
Well, two things. I think what Daniel said about using a website developer who really understands and knows optometry is important, especially as it relates to generating content, so relevant content. And you can work with your website developer to really tailor that content around what you want to talk about. So for example, when I have my monthly meetings with Donnie, he's my guy from EyeCarePro. We go through all the analytics, which I love because really the analytics tell me a lot about how patients are utilizing their time with me virtually. So where are they spending time? Are they spending time on the homepage? Are they spending time on the appointment scheduler? Are they looking at our COVID stuff? Are they looking at the doctors and the staff? The other thing that we really have been working on, and it's really been easier to do actually with COVID, is direct patients to our website to fill out their forms online. Donnie just keeps pressing upon me how important that is. Maybe Daniel, tell them why that's so important, because Donnie brings it up every single month.
Yeah, I mean, it builds more traffic to the site, which is good. They might go to Google search, find you and come and link to the site and stay on the site and do and interact with the site. It's just all good reason. Didn't you just add something to your site to drive more patient engagement, Dr. Lippiatt? What did you do now?
Yeah, we added the pay your bills through our site tab as well. And that's we're in a more rural area with older people, and I'm shocked at how many people do that. I would have never have guessed that people would use that option. So we're learning every single day, but certainly relevancy. We want to keep our website current, like Daniel said, relevant, and then understanding, through the analytics, what matters to patients. What matters to me may or may not be relevant, but what matters to patients, and then building on that. So if we start to see a trend, patients are spending more time reading about blue light, then we want to beef up that section. So I'll talk to Donnie. We need to, really add more content around this specific area. So we do pay attention to it. I never did in the past, but we are certainly paying attention to it more. And to everyone's point, people are spending more time online, and maybe it's lunch break, and I need to schedule an eye appointment. That's how they're doing it. So just being aware of what people are doing on your site, I think, is one of the most important things.
Now, Great. Now, Dr. Smiley, you have a pretty good sense because you delve into the stats a lot of what people are doing on your website. How has that helped you in terms of managing the site?
Yeah, what I realized early on is that a website with a pretty picture is not an effective website. And as our website started to build and become robust, we really noticed that certain pages were getting certain attention. And so what we're able to do on my monthly phone call with Michael is to look at these stats here. And this is just some general searches on what's getting some top hits on my page, where hours and locations are getting over 500 views. And I recognize the fact that 500 views doesn't translate to 500 patients, but that's my pool of people. And the bigger pool of people I can have viewing my webpage, the more likely I am to convert those patients into actual exams. And we have ways of measuring that, and we can institute different tactics to try to take those views and convert them into conversions. As we found that the specialty lens stuff was super effective. I mean, you wouldn't think that a scleral lens search would get 100 views, whereas our hours is getting 500. I mean, I think 100 views is pretty robust. And as I think about a scleral lens patient that can have a value of anywhere between $3,000 and upwards to $7,000 per exam to our practice, 100 views some of those are converting into full exams makes a major impact and really gives my website a huge return on investment as I move forward.
Yeah, that's just to go back to the benefit of specialty content once again. So it's a biggie. So with that said, I know we're running out of time here, so I wanted to start and end by thanking Dr. Justin Manning and the team at HEA for sponsoring the webinar. And from a time perspective, thank you everybody for staying till the end. We're happy to take some questions now. If I know you've been asking some all along in the chat, but just in case anybody wants to go, a reminder, there will be a full series as we roll out in 2021. Some of the topics, just back up a slide here, some of the topics are going to be more focused on creating a website that's unique to your practice and your brand, social media strategies that really you can implement that make the phone ring, far more SEO strategies that you can implement for your practice. I just touched on a few basic ones today. We didn't talk about paid ads. Paid ads are big. Great way to drive patients overall. And then how to measure properly. We talked about analytics, and there's a lot of other tools you can use. And then there's something called Google My Business, which we didn't even talk about today yet. Another big aspect of marketing out there. And then in the end, putting it all into a marketing plan. So huge amount to discuss. So that being said, everybody's free to go. But if you want to stay, we're happy to take some questions. And I do want to say thank you to Dr. Smiley and Dr. Lippiatt for sharing expertise with us today. And it's always good for everybody to hear real live experience about real challenges that you've had. And, of course, online marketing is possible without EyeCarePro. It might be easier with EyeCarePro, but, anybody can do it if they put their mind to it. So, Esty, are there any questions that you've gathered up out there?
Yeah, so we have a question from Lenny. Great question is, do you use your time with your patients, and this could go to Dr. Lippiatt or Dr. Smiley, do you ever use your time with your patients to kind of drive your marketing goals? And if yes, what types of questions would you ask them?
It's interesting. So right now, just keep it relevant right now, blue light seems to be a hot item that patients are Googling and asking about. And so along with patients asking me about that and my web team monthly conference call mentioning that other practices are noticing this together, that elevates that to a higher priority for me. And so blue light has gained a lot of attention on our website as of lately. So we definitely use what patients are asking and talking about to drive content on our web, but that's also combined with what my web team is hearing from other practices too. So I get the best of both worlds. I really have a good pulse on what's going on, kind of my own little business advisory board, if you will, by doing that.
Yeah, I'll add to that. With the blue light thing, really, it just popped. And one of the things that we did, we got a fish bowl and set it right at our front counter with a blue fish in there. We called him Blue, and people would say, what's up with the fish? And we would, and the person at the front desk would say, that's just to bring your awareness to how important blue light protection is. So it was like a $5 solution for $1,000 worth of ROI. And the other thing, to go back to the original question, I think, Chris, you do this too. We ask people for, Google reviews, and we want them to be specific. What is it that you liked about our practice? So as specific as they can be, that's what we ask them to do.
Yeah, we didn't really get to touch on Google reviews because this topic is so complicated. We literally could have 25 webinars on this whole thing. But Google reviews are such a huge thing. I think of my practice as being driven by word of mouth, and anymore today, if you're going to go to book a hotel or buy a TV, you're going to read reviews. And that's really become a big, important part of driving patients to the practice. I see on social media for ODs, doctors complaining about a negative Google review, and that, all of us have that one patient that has a bad experience. We can't be so good that we don't have those patients, but we can't let those patients destroy our web presence and our web marketing and our online reputation. And so you have to be aggressive in getting your patients to leave positive Google reviews. And ever since we've done that, I can say that Google reviews are one of my top referrals for new patients. I mean, it's unbelievable how many patients I read your Google reviews and I selected you because of that.
So I have a question for the two of you. A lot of practices know that reviews are important. They don't have them. Why?
Yeah.
I think it's hard. I mean, it's hard for me. It still is. I think I don't know, we're doctors. I think it's hard for us to say to patients, would you leave us a Google review? I mean, I had some old furniture moved out of a condo a while ago down in Florida, and I used Google review, or I Googled to find the company, and they came, they did a great job. I told them what a great job they did. I mean, they had no shame. They were like, we need you to write, to give us a Google review. So, other businesses do it all the time. I just think that
Dr. Lippiatt, would you like it automated? Would that be better? Every patient leaves a review, or is that worse? You don't have to ask anymore.
Yeah, I think it depends on your practice and, where your comfort level is.
That's it. So it's not like you can replace it by just a tool that says, hey, ask everybody for review. I'm fine with that. That's not necessarily what you're looking for.
And I think the big thing that we've learned is there's new patients that glow about you in front of your face. Those are ones you want to ask for a review. You have to create a culture for doing it. I mean, we could, again, have a whole hour-long webinar on this topic, but just in short, if a patient returns to see you year after year, they like you, they're going to leave a good Google review if you ask them. And it's not hard to do. It's a little nerve-wracking at first, but once you get used to it, I can tell you which office of mine has the best customer service experience by their Google reviews. And then we focus on that for the other locations as an opportunity to improve.
Yeah. Esty, any last question perhaps?
Sure. One more that I have. Just a second. This is from an anonymous attendee. They're asking about a blog page that they have on their website, and they're not saying that the traffic has been that great. So what would be his suggestions, recommendations for driving traffic to that blog? And I also actually just got another question from somebody else asking about, are blog pages valuable?
So I'll answer just quickly on the technical side, which is posting something new to the site. Okay, let's say not very many people read it. It is a signal that the site is being updated. There's new content coming. Google likes it. Somebody gets to the page. And what if your last blog post was a year ago? You can't do that. If you're going to commit to a blog, you got to keep it up to date. So from that perspective, they're all good. Are people reading it? I think you'll find in the end that if you have enough blog posts, stats-wise, you'll get the occasional blog that just makes it big, gets 20, 30, 50 views a month. It just happens if you just keep up the consistency. But blogs are just a simple way of getting new content up on the site. They're important. I would keep doing it. A lot of positive benefits to it, even though, nobody told me that they read that blog. I got it. They probably have better things to tell you than that. But I would keep up the strategy for sure. Anything to add on that? No, we're good. Okay. All right. Well, I want to end off there then. So thank you once again to our co-hosts for today. Esty, thank you as well for managing the webinar. And we'll be following up with an email with all those links that Esty shared. We'll be sending them back to you so you guys can make sure that you use them all. And then look for the next part of the series in the new year. So as we say, thanks everybody, and we'll see you online.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.